Greetings and salutations. This is Jason Miko bringing to you an audio version, the spoken word, of my weekly column on Macedonian matters. The English version is published on Medium.com, and the Macedonian version is published on Svest.mk. This week's column, which is published on Saturday, April 20, 2019, is titled Inheritance and Memory. German philosopher Johann Goethe wrote, quote, "What you have inherited from your forefathers, earn it in order to possess it." American sociologist, writer, and professor Daniel Bell, writing in The Cultural Contradictions of Capitalism, notes, quote, "Without memory, there is no maturity. There is only the constant search for new interests, new pastimes, new sensations, new adventures, new revels, new revolutions, new joys, new..." unquote. He also writes about the necessity for a, quote, "reaffirmation of our past, for only if we know the inheritance from the past can we become aware of the obligation to our posterity," unquote. What have you inherited, Macedonia, from your forefathers, and what are your memories of the past and of that inheritance? Have you earned what you have inherited from the men and women who sacrificed their all for an independent Macedonia, from the men and women who fought, bled, and even died in the pursuit of an independent Macedonia? Do you have a memory of that past, a memory you pledge to pass on to your children, grandchildren, and generations of Macedonians not yet born? Are you earning, present tense, all of this? Rereading what Bell wrote above, it becomes obvious, to me at least, that the authors of the so-called Prespa Agreement, Dimitrov, Zaev, Ahmeti, and their Greek counterparts and Western elite handlers, are intent on achieving two things with their paper document. First, they are intent on searching for the new in life. In Macedonia's case, a new everything. Name, identity, history, culture, language, whatever. Second, I know that Macedonians have a memory, and a long memory at that. And because of this long memory of the past, I therefore know that there can be maturity in Macedonia and among the Macedonians, and that in rereading Goethe above, you can continue to earn that which your forefathers and ancestors gave you. This is the continuing struggle brought to you, and Macedonians everywhere, by the actions of the Zaev Ahmeti government. A constant battle to save those memories, reflect on those memories, and earn that past inheritance, even as the Macedonian government, together with their friends in Greece and the Western elites, attempt to hollow out that past and that inheritance and substitute something new into your lives, into the life of Macedonia. One of the many problems with the hollowing out of Macedonia's identity through the so-called Prespa Agreement, a hollowing out pursued and achieved either deliberately and with malice or without consideration for the potential ill effects of the agreement, which makes the whole endeavor filled with ignorance and incompetence and therefore illegitimate. One of the problems is that once you hollow out something like the core of identity, there is a hole which needs to be filled, because identity is essential to who we are as individuals and as peoples. And in the case of the Zaev Ahmeti government, their intention is to fill that hole with something that is, at its core, empty. Membership in NATO and the EU, essentially liberal democracy, has never, cannot, and never will provide meaning or identity on a personal, much less spiritual level. They can't, because both liberal democracy and its twin capitalism, in and by themselves, offer an empty shrine to nothing. Both are merely tools to be used for good or for ill. Apart from our identities as families, communities, and a nation, they are meaningless. And so when you strip away that meaning and identity, the foundation and roots of Macedonia and the Macedonians, as the so-called Prespa Agreement does, you are left with nothing more than the blind pursuit of wealth, which is not a recipe for happiness or contentment. Stevo Pentorovsky, the presidential candidate of Svest.mk and Zaev Ahmeti, has promised a continuation of the so-called colorful revolution of Svest.mk, which led to the current situation Macedonia finds itself in. It seems Pentorovsky and the Zaev Ahmeti government are not satisfied with merely gutting Macedonia of its name, identity, history, culture, heritage, and much more. They want to replace all of that with something that is new and artificial that will not bring satisfaction, let alone meaning. But in continuing with their revolution, in other words, with their continuing drive to reject Macedonia's past, they forget a key truth about revolutions. The Hoover Institution's Victor Davis Hanson, a classicist, historian, and author, writes that, quote, "Few leftist revolutionary cycles ever halt in mid-course, whether in 1789 France, 1917 Russia, 1946 China, or 1960 Cuba. The philosophy is always that today's radical is yesterday's sellout, to be replaced by tomorrow's genuine, far harder leftist. until the limits of reality are reached and the movement either implodes or leads to an authoritarian Napoleon, Lenin, Mao, or Fidel, unquote. One might argue that Macedonia already has an authoritarian in the form of Zoran Zaev, but again, in continuing this revolution, as with the above-mentioned revolutions, Penderovsky hopes to continue throwing away Macedonia's past in the hope of attaining utopia, a word which literally means no place. It all ends in wailing and the gnashing of teeth. Macedonia and the Macedonians have a rich history that centers first and foremost on faith, family, and tradition. In the rush to join the so-called West with all of its faults and successes, it is vital that you remember the inheritance that you have been given from those men and women who came before you and fought and sacrificed for an independent Republic of Macedonia, that could therefore then be a bastion of support for that faith, family, tradition, and identity. English author, poet, and philosopher G.K. Chesterton reminds us that, quote, among the many things that leave me doubtful about the modern habit of fixing eyes on the future, none is stronger than this, that all the men of history who have really done anything with the future have had their eyes fixed upon the past, unquote. Remember that, Macedonia, as you fix your eyes upon the future. I leave you with two thoughts. Number one, there are more good things in this life than you can possibly imagine. Number two, the proper attitude is always gratitude. Thanks for listening.